Welcome back. You're listening to Home Wizards. I'm Cindy Dole.
Hey, I'm Eric Stromer.
And you're also listening to the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, you are.
Because we love to talk about color, and you've painted a lot of home exteriors in your life.
I have painted a tremendous amount of homes, interior and exterior, and I'll tell you, there's a real stigma about what color am I supposed to use. You know, people I think get hung up on, you know, it's supposed to be something, right? And there are some hard and fast rules about exterior paint color, and I think the thing that's the most important is to understand that you have to take into consideration the color of your roof. I think oftentimes people are not aware of the fact that the roof is such a huge portion of a color palette when it comes to an exterior house color. Mm-hmm. And if you get into the wrong, like if you have a dark charcoal roof and you get into the wrong tonality on the house that doesn't really work with that, think of fashion and when you're putting together outfits, it has to somehow work together. It can't be all cattywampus. You don't want to have sort of a red tone clay roof with some slightly different red color on the house too. It's going to end up looking really clashy, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing that you want to really consider. You also want to take into account the neighborhood. What colors does the neighborhood support? You know, you don't want to be the house that, you know, everybody's got this sort of desert tan, and then you're the red house. Hello,
or lavender.
I'm the circus. You know, I've come to town with my big tents.
I was driving down our street just the other day, and I noticed, I mean, most of the homes were kind of neutral, you know, the creams and the grays and the, you know, with a pop of color on the door, which is great.
Right.
Maybe some olive green home color. And then out of the blue is this home. You could tell it was newly painted because there's a sign that says painted by so-and-so and company.
Right.
And it is kind of like turquoise. It is a turquoise blue, the whole house. Not just the door.
And does it work? Because sometimes it works and it's amazing.
Sure.
And sometimes it's just absolutely not working.
I think that this is a pretty color, and it would work if it were in that kind of, well, first, the architecture wasn't, you know, like that.
Right.
But the neighborhood wasn't like that. And so it felt just kind of, well, pardon the expression, out of the blue.
Sure. Yeah. And it's interesting, too, because, you know, if it's an historical home,
or hysterical.
Yeah, or hysterical. Then you definitely have some really amazing possibilities. And a great way to kind of figure out how to paint a historical home would be look online and look at old photos and old colors.
Like Victorian homes.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Or, you know, these old painted ladies that have multiple colors, which is absolutely stunningly beautiful, right? And when it's done right, it just pops. It's like a jewel in a museum case or something. But when it's done wrong, then it's clashy. And again, you're not considering either the roof or you haven't done your research enough. But combinations of colors can be very unusual, but they do have to have some root in the history of how they've been done in the past. So having said that, go to the Historical Society, you know, take a look at some of the color combinations. Also, any of the paint companies now have architectural series. They've got builder series paint colors. They've got, you know, these historical home paint colors. And they really kind of have spent tons of research and money on how to find the right colors to make combinations occur. And they do have catalogs now that have, you know, if you're going to paint the body of the house this color, this trim line would work with that trim line as well, and this accent for the door. So really pay attention to some of the companies that do this either on their websites or in the paint store. When you go and you just start pulling cards out, you know, color cards, that can get overwhelming too, unless you've got sort of a foundational idea on how to do that. So I always suggest get some of the brochures that the companies have put together, and then you can use that to improvise from, right? You've got sort of an idea of what has been done by these color experts, and there are amazing color experts out there who can put these things together. They've done the research, look at what they've done, and then you can kind of go variable off of that. You can choose different tints of yellow, for example, and pale yellows that they've decided on, but you can have a different one within that range.
And I love the idea of taking a photo of your home. We've talked about this before for the door, but I don't know why you couldn't do it for the entire home.
You can.
Stand back across the street and take a wide shot of your entire home, and then print it out on a piece of paper, and then cut out everything but the roof, and then slide in those paint chips.
You can absolutely do that. That's a great idea.
In fact, include in your photo maybe the neighbor home on either side. And then you can see now how that lavender that you've chosen is going to look in the neighborhood of cream
Right.
and rust color homes.
Yeah,
right?
and we're not suggesting either that you can't be bold and take a chance and
No.
try something else. You don't have to look like every other house, but
It's the hue. It's the hue.
It's not only it's the hue, but it's also the architecture and what
Yeah.
colors does that house support. You know, like certain modern homes don't want to be painted in Victorian colors because it just feels weird. You know, conversely, you know, Victorian or Craftsman has a very specific color palette, right? So you're gonna definitely have to kind of stay within the guidelines of that architectural style. Also, identify the architectural style of your home. What is it that this house really is supposed to be? For example, we've seen these areas where there are historical Eichler homes that were created like back in the 1940s and early 50s, sort of mid-century design. This was a guy out here in California that created these amazing tract homes. And I've driven through the neighborhood and I've seen that people have tried to amend them over the years and say, like, let's make it Spanish. Yeah, let's put columns in front of the Eichler home. It's going to look great.
And we're going to paint it cobalt blue.
And paint it cobalt blue, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what are we doing here? This is
stressful.
insane looking, right? So you want to identify the architectural style of your home. And architects are always going to kind of try and build a community within a certain sensibility. So kind of figure out what that was for your own particular home, right? Like I have a house that very much looks like a 1950s sort of, you know, middle America, you know, this is the house with the black shutters and the red door and the tan house, right? It just looks like that. So I don't want to turn that into some, you know, Ronald McDonald house with bright, vibrant colors. It wants to receive these paint tones. And within that, there can be 40 different colors, but find the architectural style first.
And the good news, too, is that in terms of the paint companies, I mean, there's so many tools that they are helping us with, from apps, you know, to when you go into the store, the actual layout. They lay out your palette combination.
That's
so
exactly
maybe,
right.
you know, maybe your palette is a kind of a dark, almost like a charcoal, blackish, brownish main base color,
Right.
and then for the trim you have kind of an olive green,
That's
or
right.
then you have a pop of red for your door, whatever. They have all of these color experts have already done the thinking for you.
They really have, and that's an amazing tool out there. So utilize their technology and their apps that do that. Also, don't be afraid to buy quarts of something or even smaller and paint a quarter of your window trim, like the white that you're going to want to use for your trim color, and then paint the stucco or the wood clapboard, the idea that you might have. You can do that 5 different times over, live with it for a few days, see what it looks like in one area. You know, you can paint the back, like if it's in the back of the house, no one's going to see it. You might as well take the opportunity to experiment and see what works for you.
And see how it looks in different times of the day.
That's exactly right.
Like in the sunrise and the sunset.
no question.
And it might, like, you know, certain colors, depending on the light, you go, oh, it looked better in the store, and now
That's
it's
right.
kind of,
That's right.
I don't like it.
I
Maybe
agree.
maybe it's just the wrong hue. You know, you like the basic blue idea, but it needs to be deeper or lighter or whatever.
That's it. That's right.
Yeah.
And also, if you're not going to do it yourself and you're going to hire a painter, this is what they want you to do. They want to experiment. They want to give you the ability and the colors that you can use to try and figure out what suits you best. So take advantage of that. You know, have them paint a section and see if you like it. And if they roll their eyes, then it's the wrong painter. You know, you definitely want to have somebody who you have that relationship with where they'll be happy to go, yeah, let's try the tan.
So speaking of painters, how much should we expect to pay a painter, a professional painter, to do our home exterior?
That's a good question. So roughly, you know, like a 2,500 square foot home is going to be somewhere in the $7,000 to $10,000 range for paint and materials. And
that's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to do extensive trim, it could be a little bit more. If it's just a couple of colors where there's not a lot of cutting in, it could be a bit less. So somewhere around that, I think.
Thanks, Eric Stromer,
Yes.
Cindy Dole. You're listening to Home Wizards. We love to improve your home and improve your life.
Why